Hi, how you doing? I wanted to offer some bits of advice on anxiety. So, we all get anxiety, right? If we're gonna have to speak in front of a large room of people, it's natural to feel anxious. If we're out in the woods and we come across a bear, not that that's going to happen in the UK, but you feel pretty anxious. And that's part of our body's natural response system to keep us safe. And anxiety does a good job. Our trouble is, sometimes that alarm system that's meant to keep us safe, it gets out of control. It becomes a bit like a smoke alarm that goes off every time that we make toast. It becomes unhelpful, and many people suffer from general anxiety disorder, and it can manifest itself in many ways. And I'm just going to concentrate on a couple little parts today so that I can offer some advice and some tips that can help. Some of the symptoms of anxiety and people that struggle with anxiety on a daily basis can be the lack of ability to make a decision, the inability to make a decision. That might be out of fear of the consequences or just unease about the situation. But they can't make a decision, they can't decide what they're doing. So they stay stuck and they end up procrastinating and they don't do anything at all. Or they're too scared to move forward with a task out of fear of judgment, fear of failure. And this can create a large problem for people in their daily lives, and it can hold them back from doing things that they really want to do. So I offer two little bits of advice today, just some small tips. One of those things is find the smallest possible step. Because if you can see the next step, just take that. We often overwhelm ourselves too much with the whole picture of something and what could go wrong and all the possible things that could happen, and try and prepare for every outcome just in case it might happen. And very rarely does any of those worst case scenarios that we thought in our head, very rarely do they come true. And also, if you think about the very best scenario, how often does the best scenario come true? Are we every day walking around going, yeah, everything's gone absolutely perfect today? How often does that happen? Also very rarely, right? So there's a middle ground somewhere where it becomes the most likely thing that will happen. And so when we think about that big picture and we're taking in all the possibilities that could go wrong, it overwhelms our nervous system and we hit a fight or flight response and we can become stuck in indecision and unable to do anything. So rather than thinking about the task as a whole, you might think of the smallest possible step. Let's take an example of a scenario. Maybe you need to get on top of your bills. Your finances get out of control. But just the thought of thinking about your finances, it just puts complete fear and panic into you. And you think about all the problems that you've got and all that's coming into your head. You might just make one small step. Well, what's the first step I can see? the first step might be, okay, I'm going to get every letter that I've had come through the door that's unopened, and I'm going to put them all on the table. And that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do today. I'm going to get the letters that are all unopened and put them neatly on the table so I can see them and where they are. And that might be enough for one day. And the next day you might say, well, okay, I'm going to open one letter today. That's the next step that I can see. And chunking things down and making these steps much smaller for ourselves, it reduces the amount of stress and anxiety that we have about the situation. Because all of a sudden, our task isn't to sort out our finances and get on top of our finances. Our task simply becomes to put a pile of letters on a table. Our task becomes to just open one letter. And that can be really helpful. And another good tip is when we don't do things because we think we're going to fail, we think we're going to do it badly. Well, what about if we just do it badly anyway and accept that we're going to do it badly? And there's a lot of power in learning to accept and do things badly, because if we get started and we start doing things badly and we continue to do them, we will get better at them. So there's 2 tips that you can use to, maybe if you're procrastinating or struggling with some decisions, is sometimes think maybe making a bad decision is better than making no decision at all and being stuck in anxiety and inaction. But doing things badly forces us, it springs us into action to do something. And when we're doing, that anxiety begins to disappear. It's when we're stuck there in the inaction that the anxiety builds. So what is the smallest possible step you can see? And if you can do it badly, but it's doing it, maybe that's a good place to start.